Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lamont Weber, and we have the great privilege today in our continuing series on life on Venus to be with the extraordinary author and researcher and Venus visitor, VV, Raymond Keller. Welcome, Raymond. And of course, Venus contactee, Robert Potter. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you so much. I'd like to add / time traveler to Raymond, but you'll get to that stuff in the third book. It's an honor to be here.
Venus visitor and time traveler, VVTT. Those are the, you know how you have your degree to traditionally degree initials. Well, the initials that are really sought after these days are VVTT, I would say.
Right, double V, double T. Sounds like a rap moniker. A rap star.
So today, as we had discussed in our last Life on Venus program, and for those who may have missed it, the link to that program is in the video description of this video. We're going to start on an in-depth examination in the first hour of the first of Raymond's books in his Venus trilogy, and that is Venus Rising, which I've had the great pleasure of reading. So I'm going to turn the discussion over to you. I've got my copy of Venus here on my Kindle reader. I like to use Kindle. That's just the way I do. And I've got it open to the various chapters: The Birth of Venus, Velikovsky, Exobiology, Hidden Venus, Tannhauser, Emanuel Swedenborg, Secret Doctrine, First Ambassador to Outer Space, The Doomsday Clock. That's just the first 3 or 4 chapters. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and we start. Sorry, Robert.
I just wanted to say I'm going to kind of blank out my screen. I'd like this to be about you and Raymond. Raymond has tremendous knowledge. You know, I might turn the screen in if I feel really urgently need to chime in, but
sure,
if you want me or have any perspective here, but I'm going to listen in for the most part. And I have some amazing things. We've been having some amazing conversations, and I'm going to kind of get people excited about some of the future stuff that Raymond's doing too. Well, I should mention he's got his next book coming out. He finished it. It's called Vast Venus Conspiracy. It's going to be book number 4. And he's in the process of another amazing book. And I'll let him tell you about that. It's with the Lady Columba, one of the Earthlings that now lives on Venus, who has translated the beautiful blonde woman I showed in the previous PowerPoint. But I'm going to let you guys take it over. I'll be here. I'm going to mute myself, turn off my camera. If you need me, I'll be able to hear, and I'll be right back. And you guys have a great show. I'll be right back.
Okay, good. Don't, intervene if you feel like, and we'll catch up with you in the second hour. So,
I'll turn my camera on if I feel something was really interesting to me to comment. But
sure.
You've done, to be honest, Alfred, of all the people who have been interviewing us, you have done your homework. You're researching the book, and you're going to have some really good questions.
Listen, I have punched my ticket on Mars, and I'm ready for Venus, let me tell you.
Yeah, baby. All right, enjoy.
Okay, so here we are at Venus Rising. Give us the premium tour, please.
All right. Well, thank you, Alfred. It's a pleasure to be here and share this time with you and all the viewers out there. I would have to say that to begin with, Helena Blavatsky was the primary inspiration for me to write Venus Rising: A Concise History of the Second Planet. Back in the 1880s, she wrote History of a Planet, and that was her first writing as a theosophist and as co-founder of the Theosophical Society. And she said that Venus, the morning and viewed as the morning and evening star from Earth, not only teaches us, but she inspires. And I felt that it was a long time coming for a book to be written containing a concise history of the second planet. Her initial writing was only about 20 some odd pages, and so much has transpired in that time, in that 135 years, that I felt that it was necessary to include as much information as I could, and so began this series of books.
Right. Now, I'm just looking here at my copy of it. So you really start getting into it when you start going into the Venusians among us in chapter 5. Could you go more in depth into the Venusians among us?
Oh, sure. Well, because Venus is the closest planet to the Earth, it's 26 million miles away at its closest point. Of all the extraterrestrial groups, the Venusians have been interacting with we of Earth for the longest period of time. And ever since pre-recorded history, they've exercised a great influence and a physical presence, as well as a spiritual and ultra-dimensional presence on our planet, guiding our development from behind the scenes.
So you talk about Easy Rider and the Venusians, David Bowie, Nikola Tesla. Why don't we start out with Nikola Tesla and his relationship to Venus?
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, Nikola Tesla is noted as the great scientist, possibly more brilliant than Einstein. And my book looks intimately at all of his Venus connections. So Tesla's, he's considered the wizard and patron saint of modern electricity, and he's credited with the inspiration for radio, radar, and even robotics. One of the things that he built in 1898 was a Telescope. This was a device that he created for communication with beings on other planets, and he focused his attention on both Venus and Mars, since those are the closest worlds to the Earth. And he actually received signals and published the results of his communications in various New York newspapers at the time. Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Oh, okay. I thought the signal froze up there for.
Oh, yeah. No. There may be some outside interference that's just trying to play with you, but just go for it.
Oh, okay. Okay. The assertion that Tesla claimed to be a Venusian actually comes from Arthur Matthews, the last man to have worked side by side with his great scientists on a plethora of groundbreaking experiments and projects. Tesla is alleged to have passed on all the secrets to his young apprentice. Matthews, he generally kept a low profile, and he kept out of the public eye. He lived in a modest home tucked away in the shores of rural and rustic Lake Beauport in Quebec, up in Canada. Long after Tesla's death, thousands of inquiring individuals, such as curiosity seekers and would-be inventors and the agents of various governments, made a trek up to Canada to tap Matthews for information. They would ask him about Tesla's work on sundry projects and seek help in building some kind of apparatus or another. But Matthews would always say that the answers are in Tesla's patents, lectures, and articles. If the seeker was diligent enough, he or she was sure to find the answers that they so ardently sought for. So there's some speculation that and some evidence that Matthews was actually Tesla's son. I have a picture of both Matthews and Tesla in the Venus Rising book. I don't know. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
And Matthews wrote this book called The Wall of Light, along with Nikola Tesla, the Venusian spaceship, the X-12, and all the information connecting Tesla with Venus is explored in that book. Matthews acknowledged that Tesla had strange ideas, and he added that he always thought he came from the planet Venus. He said as much to me. And the crew of a Venusian spaceship said in one of their first messages that a male child was born on board their ship during its trip from Venus to Earth in July of 1856. And that was in Croatia. And so he claimed that he was not born here on Earth. Of course, Tesla was, whether he was an Earthling or a Venusian, he had to be born at some place in some specific time. So what we can infer from this is in that last statement. Matthews meant to say he was not born on Earth in the traditional sense that Earthlings are born, but born on Venus through another birthing process that we have yet to comprehend. So this would be like incubation in a pod, such as in a beehive. And so I go into great detail into all this material, and also quote from a profound metaphysical authority. That was Margaret Storm. She was a theosophist and a friend of Tesla, and wrote a book about him called The Return of the Dove. And that also explores in great detail all the Venusian connections there. So yeah, Tesla was called the Superman because he arrived on Earth in a spaceship as a tiny baby and grew up to maturity to fulfill his great mission. And according to the author of that book, Return of the Dove, his mission was that of assisting the ascended master Saint Germain to set up the machinery for the new scientific civilization that will lift the Aquarian age to heights of glories. There we have a drawing from the New York Times in 1898 of Tesla, the Superman of his age. And then when we explore all the inventions, electric airships, wireless transmission of power, and so forth, we could see that Tesla was truly the visionary, and his ideas have profoundly influenced the development of our civilization, and many of his ideas that are still in the process of being incorporated into our way of life. So the Venusian Connection, Nikola Tesla, Venus Rising. So please check it out. And that book is on Amazon.com.
Right, right. Now I'm just looking at continuing here. You mention the Venusian agenda, the Phantom airship, the Cosmic Emissary, and NASA encounters a Venusian mothership. Could you talk about these things?
Oh, sure. Okay, the Venusian emissary was one by the name of Valiant Thor. And his presence on Earth, before he ever showed up at the Pentagon and stayed there for 3 years from 1957 through 1960, was detected as early as 1954. Donald E. Kehoe, the retired Marine Corps major from the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, had done extensive research into unknown satellites that were orbiting the Earth before even the launch of the Sputnik in 1957. So he collected various reports and articles from newspapers about the radar detection of at least 4 unknown satellites that were orbiting the Earth, and some in a polar orbit, which was unheard of until years after satellites were initially developed. But one of these was called the Black Knight, and they followed it all the way through the mid-1960s. And there's lots of documentation in the Venus Rising books about the Black Knight and following that ship, as well as a full report on Valiant Thor and his mission here on Earth. Now, I have the original documents from Valiant Thor's appearance in the late 1950s at Howard Menger's farm in High Bridge, New Jersey, and published them on rents.com. That was his notes, plus some photos that had never been seen before, including inside Howard Menger's house on that same day, and other people in attendance beside Val Thor and his crew that had witnessed some strange things like the Tharps. They saw a Venusian in that party jump 14 feet over a fence in an apple orchard in the backyard. And everything is documented because I published the pictures with August C. Roberts, the photographer who was there, his official seal, as well as his typed comments about what was happening the rest of that day, that very famous day on the Menger farm. So all the material there that's in the Venus book, there's more to come because I'm still writing more articles and books. So when the full revelation of it comes out, you will be quite surprised. I just returned from Las Vegas, where I met with a friend who is closely associated with Dr. Frank Stranges, who revealed this information in his book, Stranger in the Pentagon. And so I've obtained yet more information about Dr. Strange's inner circle, the angel force that's operating here on Earth from the planet Venus, and many, many startling revelations to come.
Now, what was the sorry, Robert, did you wish to add something?
I was just, I got caused a new light there and everything, and I was just going to say, if because when he leans forward, he cuts his head off, maybe just stay back and move a little bit to your left, Cos.
A little bit to my left? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and there you go. And don't bring your head too far forward, but because he's such a handsome man. Anyway, go.
Oh,
There you go. Here we are.
oh, okay. Uh-huh.
Okay. So, yeah. So, uh, I just want to bring up my copy here and ask there, you refer to a NASA encounter with a Venusian mothership. Again, in the Venus Rising book. Could you tell us just a bit about this? I mean, I don't want to spoil the contents of the book, but just to really give us just a bit of highlights so people can know, oh, you know, I've heard a lot about Mars and I've heard a lot about grays, but Venus is really the planet that I should be paying attention to, because that's the one that we really have in-depth relationships between Earth humans and Venus humans.
Yes. Well, there's over 300 pages in the Venus Rising alone, including over 100 photos and some of them in color. So I think that we wouldn't be giving too much of a spoiler to talk about some of these things. There's also over 600 footnotes in there, and it's so well documented that anybody could follow and check up on this information for themselves to see that I'm not making it up. A lot of times, though, I have to be careful because when I speak about some of these things, they're so astounding, and it's such an amazing science and philosophy that's far beyond anything that we have on the earth, that people will sometimes dismiss it as science fiction. So I would like them to take the time to read the Venus books carefully, as you have, and look at the photographs, check out the evidence, and then make a judgment. But if I just come right out and talk about these things, people will tend to dismiss it offhand. So that's
yeah. Let me ask you kind of a general purpose exopolitics question. And this was something that came up in the exopolitics community a number of years ago. And I'll ask you this about the Mars trilogy, soon to be the Mars quadrology. I think that's the name of when you have 4 books.
Oh yes, we're just going to call it the Venus Rising series.
Oh, good. That's simple. Have you ever approached a college or university teachers or professor or curriculum or college department to have them teach a course on life on Venus based on your books and other tomes?
Well, it's kind of interesting that I have mentioned my books from time to time in classes that I taught. I'm retired now, but a funny kind of story is that they were looking for somebody to teach a class on Greek and Roman mythology, and I happened to overhear it, and I said, "Well, I've written some books on Venus," and so they hired me on the spot to teach those classes, and I was just teaching in the Department of History, but because my PhD is in history, but my master's degree is in Latin American literature, and I specialized in magic realism, like Gabriel Garcia Marquez and so forth. so that was a great honor, I thought. And yeah, nobody has criticized me or given me any static about it. I understand that some other professors that have been involved with ufology and different aspects of exobiology and exopolitics have had some static, but I haven't. Maybe because I would just close to retirement anyway, and they didn't feel it necessary to do that.
Hey, by the way, Kaz, what is your doctorate in?
Oh, okay. My doctorate is in Latin American and African history.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I studied. I wrote my dissertation on the settlement of Afro-Zulians in the transatlantic world in the northwest corner of Venezuela, and I followed the life of Capitan Juan de Churio. He was from the Basque country in the Pyrenees. He was born in the French side of the border, and he was a trader in goods, and he also brought mercenary soldiers. These weren't slaves; they were came from the Mbangala region of the Congo and Angola, and he brought them over to clear the land in around Lake Maracaibo, the south of Lake Maracaibo, to set up settlements there. And these Mbangala warriors fought and defeated the Motilones Indians on behalf of the Spanish crown with a charter, a special charter. And so they were given title to lands and everything, and became powerful families, even though they were black. So the tradition and history of slavery in Latin America is quite different from North America. And these people were empowered, and that's basically what the book is about. I also have in there about 3 of his ships, and one of them went down, and it had 200,000 gold Spanish doubloons in there, and there's some clues in that book to exactly where it went down, and I see that it's selling. Just a used copy is selling now on Amazon for about $450.
Right. Now, has NASA said anything publicly about its encounter with the Venusian Venusian mothership? Or
oh yes, let's see. Okay. That was okay. I talked about the satellites that NASA knew, or that the U.S. government knew were in orbit around the Earth. At least 4 of them, as early as 1954, and then okay, since the Eisenhower administration was well aware of the existence of advanced extraterrestrial civilizations well before Valiant Thor ever stepped foot in the Pentagon. But the proof that the mothership Victory 1 or a similar craft was real came in February of 1960, when the space radar scanners at White Sands, New Mexico, detected what could only be described as a gigantic unknown object in a polar orbit. Of course, putting a satellite into a polar orbit was a feat beyond the technological capabilities of either the United States or the Soviet Union at that time. Also, the direction of the mothership and its polar orbit just 1 month from Valiant Thor's departure date gave every indication to the White House and Pentagon officials that the mysterious object that they were looking for was indeed the Victory 1, coming to take Val Thor back home to Venus. But while the White House and upper echelons of NASA had expected the mothership would go away soon after it had received its commander, they were surprised to discover that the large vessel remained in the polar orbit. Ham radio operators from around the globe also began to intercept strange coded signals from that very same object. The National Security Agency, in turn, at the behest of the CIA, dispatched agents to pay unceremonious visits to each of the radio aficionados, each of the ham radio operators, telling them that what they were hearing were coded messages from a new but secret Soviet satellite, and that for the interests of national security, they should not say anything further about the transmissions to anyone, including family members. And along with the enactment of these security measures, the NSA put a team of its own analysts on the case. Soon one of these was claiming that he had managed to decode one of the strange transmissions. He said that the encrypted signal corresponded to a star chart that could have been plotted from the Earth 13,000 years ago. The focus of these charts was the Epsilon Booty star system, located about 203 light years from the Earth. Most astronomers know the two major stars in the systems by their traditional names as Isar and Pulcherima. These celestial lights can be viewed with the unaided eye at night, but resolving the pair in anything but a large telescope is a daunting task, even for a professional astronomer. So I explored the significance of this 13,000 years ago star chart and looked at various theories of time travel and the propulsion of the mothership, and the theories of John Archibald Wheeler, an American astrophysicist who published numerous articles on the theoretical nature of this phenomena and time travel in space-time dilation and traveling through wormholes. He was the very first one to write about that. So it really gets deep into there, and it shows that the United States may have had a time travel project as early as the mid-1960s, based on information that they garnered from these transmissions. So it's really quite fantastic, as I had mentioned before. So I would just encourage viewers to get the book and to read it and to take in this information and judge for themselves. They can check out all the references and footnotes, and any particular area that really interests them, they could really delve into it and learn quite a bit about the extraterrestrial presence on Earth and in our timeline.
Right. Now, you also then go on to talk about what you call Venusian channels and Venusian walk-ins in terms of Ernest Norman, The Voice of Venus, and the walk-ins Venus and Omnec Onec. Could you talk about these?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Venus was on the Long John Neville program. She was at the she first came to the attention of the International UFO Congress back for their assembly in 1967. She was being interviewed along with Howard Menger, and I have the complete transcript of that. Venus was what you would call a walk-in as well, and she made her way around the United States, going from town to town. She was originally from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, I think, and she would write these songs and sing about peace, peace on earth. And remember, this was during the time of the Vietnam War. So her message was very important, and apparently only a few people listened, but maybe that was all that was that was needed. It only takes like that song. It only takes a spark to get a fire going. So perhaps she did fulfill her mission, but she wrote about Venus in the higher dimensional levels, and about creativity and art and beauty, and her message was really profound. And basically, she was trying to get her message above all the political mumbo jumbo and hate speech of the time. And
Do you think that, sorry, just to interrupt, this is something that occurred to me. Do you think that she chose her walk-in, being from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, to be a correspondence to the birthplace of, in the reported birthplace in the Gospels and other sources of the Jesus Christ, Bethlehem, Bethlehem.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is, if you're planning these things from a strategic point of view.
Uh-huh.
Anyway,
yes, I think that
Oh, go ahead.
Well, to answer your question, I don't think that there are any such thing as coincidences, mere coincidences. They're either planned, as you say, or they're synchronicities provided by the universe to show that we're going in the right direction.
I was going to say, the walk-in situation, from the Lobsang Rampa understanding of what happened with him before he moved to Canada and all that, really indicates that there's a specific affinity that has to be aligned with souls as well as an agreement. So I think that was probably the primary aspect of her coming here. But even a walk-in Venusian, doesn't get much response. I mean, people are listening now. Howard Menger, in his book, in some of his interviews in the end, said, what were you thinking about? He says, I was kind of upset, kind of frustrated with what the government was doing and that people could not get the truth. And thank God for cosmic.
Sorry, your sound, you said thank God for what, Robert?
For cosmic ray.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Thank you so much. Well, I'd like to read a quote here from the lovely Vi Venus, who had a hard life, but she chose it as her mission on Venus, and she knew what she was facing, but she was quite saddened by some of her experience on Earth. She said, "Before I came to the Earth plane, when I was at home on Venus, I had a vision of all of you. I felt that the Earth would welcome, if not me, then the truths I would discover to help them find the peace and inner contentment, independent of what happens on the outside. But now I know my vision may have been a mirage. The Earth seems satisfied to resign itself to depression, despair, and dead ends. Does this planet Earth need me from Venus? Did it ever need me? I still don't know." So this gives an indication that Venusians on the whole are waiting for us to grow up before we can reasonably take a place in the cosmic neighborhood, brotherhood and sisterhood of our space friends. She said that her name was Viv. Her full name was Vi Venus. This is my soul name, the one I was given for my mission on Earth. And I was given this name on the planet Venus, where I was born. I cannot prove my origin. I cannot prove that what I share with you is true about my heavenly home. I cannot even prove I exist at all. Perhaps I am but a figment of your imagination. What is proof is an illusion of the mind. What is faith is of the heart, and thus is real. If I do exist, then I am from Venus. I have no credentials but one, my heart, that does not stop loving you, O child of Earth. So at least she wasn't a quitter, and we don't know what really happened to her. The only photos we have are from some newspaper clippings in along her tour, and a photo from her high school yearbook, which is published in Venus Rising. And so, you know, it's not that it doesn't really matter to the Venusians whether we believe in them or not. They're waiting for us to believe in ourselves.
Right, right. Now, who's Omnec Onec?
Okay, now Omnec is going to be a sister from Venus who is going to be a speaker in Mount Shasta. She's also written a trilogy of books about Venus in the higher dimensions, from the fifth dimension on up. My books are about Venus in the third and fourth dimensions. And so
Now, when you say she's going to be a speaker at Mount Shasta, what do you mean?
So at my conference this summer, and I'm going to chime in here a little bit. I just spoke to her daughter this morning, and we're trying to get her to move to Mount Shasta. Her daughter and I wanted to rent an apartment together and bring Omnec to Mount Shasta. So I'm kind of announcing that for the first time here. Unfortunately, she lives in Missouri at this point in time, kind of in a remote area, and her finances are limited. And I'm going to be creating a crowdfunding, and also for those people who want to contact me directly through my email address, rob@thepromiserevealed.com. If you we're trying to get about maybe $6,000 to make the whole move and move all of her stuff and get her situated with first and last month's rent and stuff out here. And so if you do that, she does do reading. She's extremely sensitive and psychic. So I'm just putting a little bug in someone's ear that you can have a very close association with her if you can help with this move here. But, anyway, Raymond can continue, but I just wanted to share that. So she is going to be at my conference this summer, is the plan.
Okay, I would recognize Omnec as the ambassador from Venus from the fifth dimension. I have a beautiful picture of her in my Venus book. There she is, right there. And this is a picture of my Venus. And there's a great picture also of her. She drew this picture. She put this together herself. It's I don't know if you could see that. All the places in the United States that she visited, and she literally walked there. She walked across the country and went to all these places and would sing in nightclubs and churches, wherever somebody would listen. So very beautiful spirit and a wonderful story. And I'm glad that people can acquaint themselves with her and with Omnec Onec's story and many others that you had mentioned there. Mr. Norman, Mr. King, and others who were in contact with Venusians in the Venus Rising book.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, and I could be wrong about this, and perhaps I've got the facts mixed up, but I had heard that Venus is ruled by a queen. The queen is elected for a fixed term, and that Omnec Onec was a prior queen. Is that correct, or did I get the facts wrong?
She's an emissary to
Emissary. Okay.
an ambassador. We
Yeah.
could say like an ambassador.
Yeah.
I
To
would
the
chime in
earth.
one thing here. The queen is not elected; she's kind of chosen
Chosen.
by the higher dimensional or by the councils of Venus.
Okay.
It's not a general election. They work kind of in accordance with the spiritual awareness, which, you know, from us, we want to transfer our ideas, but it was announced. Raymond could probably speak a lot more on that.
Okay. Well, on Venus, the orbit of the Earth and Venus exactly correspond to a Fibonacci number ratio. And of course, the higher Fibonacci number of orbits will always be with Venus because it's closer to the sun. And then the next lower Fibonacci number, exactly the orbits will match that of the Earth. So, like for example, in the Fibonacci sequence of 3, 5, 8, 11, and so forth, if the number of orbits on Venus was 11, it would actually correspond to 8 with the Earth, right on the dot. And that's why you see this schematic star pattern and so forth. And it's all explained in the Venus books, but it's very complicated. But there's an intimate relationship between the Earth and Venus, and which we read from Dante, from Emanuel Swedenborg, and others who have been to Venus and written extensively about life there, that many souls come and go from Venus to the Earth. They come as teachers or avatars to help us in our path of cosmic development. I myself am in my last incarnation on the Earth before I return home to Venus.
Now let me ask you this. Well, I wish you a wonderful incarnation here on Earth, and bring back the good news that we need more rapprochement.
Yes.
Okay, so
well, I'm a member of the Zipper Club. You see, I have like this open heart surgery, and basically what happened was they literally took my heart out of my body, and this is at the VA hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a few years ago. And so I was hooked up to artificial life while they took my heart on this table and, you know, kind of rewired it. I had quadruple bypass surgery, the same as Bill Clinton had. And then while I was out, though, I had a dream or a vision of a sort, and I was taken up to a ring of light high above the earth. And while I was up there, I met my higher self, and I was in the process of writing the Venus books, and he appeared to me as in the clothing that I wore in different incarnations, and he explained that this was my last incarnation on Earth, and I could go with him at that time and go home to Venus, or I could go back and finish the Venus Rising book and series of books. So I chose to return because that was my mission, leading through all these lives, all these 13 lives, was to provide this information.
Thank you for coming back, cuz.
Oh, you're welcome, Rob. It's a great pleasure. But I have to say that I don't have any club or any organization. Just like Jesus, um, he started a church, but the word church just means um, it ecclesia. It just means like a group. It just means like an assembly of people. So, and we see in the early Christian church, people just got together. They had informal discussions. They had meals together. They discussed philosophical matters, and they prayed and helped each other out, and they lived a communal type of existence, like in the Acts chapter 2. But they didn't have a formal organization, so to speak. And so, I don't charge anybody to join anything or have any cult or advocate for or against any religion. I just put the information out there in my Venus books, and I'm not the only contactee out there. There's literally thousands, and most remain silent because they're afraid of the ridicule and everything. I mean, I've been on some sites, and then later on, some people would say it's like a woo-woo factor, but it's not. It's really not. And in my books, I explain why Venus can support life. It's scientifically based. All the information can be checked out, and I just urge people to do that. I don't have anything to financially gain, and I don't really know how long I'll be here on this earth, and I don't care because I believe that I'll either be translated physically, like Annalise Scarron and some who have gone before me, or my spirit will be reincarnated back on Venus and then go to even higher planes of existence. So, I'm not charging like $10,000 to belong to some kind of cult or anything. So people can trust this information, because I'm not trying to buffalo anybody. This is all real, and it's all verifiable.
Right, right. I want to ask you, just kind of in that same vein, and this is sort of a background question. If we go back to Omnec Onec, and it just is amazing to me that Omnec Onec is going to speak at Robert's conference. I mean, that just is mind-blowing. And it just is amazing. You had indicated that Omnec Onec's status is as an ambassador from Venus. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Then it seems to me that a person like Omnec Onec that has a status of an ambassador from Venus would have more support here. There seems to be such struggle here among the Venus outreach, such as Omnec Onec, such as Venus, such as others, are under a tremendous amount of struggle and hardship. And I wonder if you could comment on that.
Oh, sure, Albert or Alfred.
Yeah, and I know that Robert wants to say something as well.
Yes, in like they say in that Native American proverb, that to really understand somebody, you have to walk a mile in their moccasins. For a Venusian to come down here to Earth and understand the Earth experience, to understand human beings and their conflicts, it's necessary to incarnate as one and live as one, especially if you're in a direct outreach to human communities and groups of people and individuals here on this planet.
Uh, I'll add to that question there. Her primary, one of the main missions they had for her, besides as an emissary, it's not an official emissary, but she was told not to reveal who she was until, and she did, I think, around the time of in her late teens or early 20s. But they wanted to see what would be like for a fifth dimensional being from the astral plane lowering to the physical, how they would interact here. And the other thing is Wendell Stevens told me, see, she came out in Laughlin, Nevada at a conference. I think I don't remember when it was. I want to say later 80s. And she was roundly, kind of attacked as people poked her and tucked her, and people were like, very disrespectful, and some of them were rude to her. I'm sure she got some positive response. Wendell told me that the government had some agents there, and they tried to get her to go with her and leave the room. But she ended up going to Germany, where she spent the better part of, 20 years with a friend of mine named Anya Schaefer, who calls her my little Venusian, and she was very well received there. And she kind of retired and is kind of in the States, but she's graciously come to 2 of my conferences, and she'll be coming to this one. So I just wanted to add that little 2 cents to that question.
I want to say this, and it's not something that I can prove, and it's because I'm saying it verbally. And I've been in the exopolitics business since January of 1973. I mean, out. I've been out there, in the exopolitics business since January 1973. And ever since I kind of went out there, when I went out there on behalf of the Martians, there was a big government kind of pushback and a pushback inside the exopolitics field. And there was a lot. But now that I've started to come in on behalf of the Venusians, there's even a greater pushback and a greater kind of worry among the negative powers that be on Earth that Earth humanity become aware of the Venusian humanity and the possibilities that exist there. Do you have any comment on that? I mean, that's just my informal finding since we started doing these programs and I started becoming interested in this subject.
Can you talk a little bit what the blowback is? I was just kind of curious.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of COINTELPRO, the uptick in COINTELPRO interference has upticked, and that is what occurs.
Is that negative comments or other stuff?
It's like it happens on a granular basis online, but you have a lot of interference that one encounters from sort of background noise online, from online monitoring by the negative Earth kind of controllers. And it seems to me that the negative Earth controllers do not want, are concerned about the Earth Venusians being discovered at a high degree of awareness. Because look, in the UFO, the exopolitical community, you yourself said, look what happened to Omnec Onec. I mean, she was like she was like bullied and attacked physically and horribly at the
Oh, yes.
International UFO Conference, and and that is what they do to Venusians.
Well, in Alfred, in my book, The Final Countdown: Rockets to Venus, I explore the counterintelligence program and their harassment of George Adamski, Howard Menger, and other contactees, as well as their infiltration of various UFO groups. And it's all documented there with actual FBI files and documentation going back to the early 1950s. For some reason, that was formulated during the Cold War period, and I think that what it was is that the FBI was worried because Adamski and all these other contactees were talking about the flying saucers from Venus and from the Confederation as coming from these utopian worlds, and they erroneously equated utopianism with communism.
Oh, I see. I thought that was a double layer thing that they said communism, but that their real intent was anti-Venusism. You see?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Because they didn't even want to say anti-Venusism because the one thing that they want to preserve at all costs is the Earth prison planet and keeping Earthlings down in the tar pit.
Right. That's
and keeping our culture of war, disease, crime, and poverty. That's what they want to keep here on Earth. Period. At all costs.
Because that's their power base.
Yeah. And so they just say, oh, that's because communism and capitalism are both run by the same parties, and we know that. The Soviet Union and the United States used to meet once a year under the North Pole on submarines and plan all their wars.
I think that it's like the elite's philosophy that it's like Napoleon said, it's better to reign in to rule in hell than to serve in heaven. So
I'd like to
power base.
I'd like to ask Raymond a question since we're kind of in this vein, which might be interesting to people because, there's this, people are really involved in the political dialectic of Bernie Sanders and socialism and so forth. Raymond, I've had extensive conversations with him, and it's just been fascinating because, and to understand this, in the context of the Venusian society, requires some thinking outside the box in regards to the social construct and the relationship with kind of like the bees and the way that group consciousness works. But I've asked Raymond, about the socialism and the communistic things, but when he talks about what it takes to join a confederation, it actually requires certain elements of socialism, but because we are so constrained and limited in our thinking and finances. Raymond, can you talk a little about the spirit of cooperation, how the bees work in the hive mind, and what's required for society to be working together, and how we can't just say socialism, democracy, communism, and you have to choose one. Raymond, please share the Venusian societies and how they've transformed their world into one of prosperity and abundance by kind of an integration of very.
Hello.
Robert,
I wanted him to just comment on that, how that relates. Because he mentioned, well, you have to have a representative government that divides the resources equally. And go ahead, Raymond, share what I mean.
Okay. Sure. We haven't reached the point here on Earth that that we're operating at a planetary level. We're still divided into various nation states. We're not working collectively. We're not working at establishing any consensus. And this is one of the first things that would be necessary for the planet to do in order to be considered for entry into Confederation of Planets.
Right.
Can you speak a little bit about the socialism aspect in relationship? We spoke about this before, because you know, people go, oh well, we can't give those people who don't want to work. Explain how it works. Oops, I'm sorry. If you can explain how it works on Venus, that they actually make sure everyone's fed, clothed, sheltered. Raymond, if you're born on Venus, you have the right to the following. Tell them all the good things you get.
Okay, well, one of the things is that they actually have a department of happiness. You could let them know what it is that you want in life. What's your passion, and they'll try to put the resources of the society at your disposal to make it happen. For you. Our technology still operates from not a sense of abundance like the Venusians have, but a sense of scarcity. And until we overcome that way of thinking, we'll still be mired in this economic rut. I think Commander Raines expressed it best, is that that the Venusians have an economic philosophy that is based on abundance and the production to meet people's needs, where they gear the whole society, and credits are given for good works on behalf of others, not based on gold, silver, or any kind of economic thing that we have on Earth. Like here on Earth, she said that we squabble over the crumbs that fall from the master's table, like and just the crumbs from a pie. We don't even get a slice of pie. That's reserved, a whole slice, that would be reserved for the oligarchs and the economic elites, where the Venusians just bake more pies endlessly until everybody has their fill. So this is the difference, the difference of economic philosophy. And when we look at other areas, medicine and science, the Venusians, it's like their science is like magic, would seem like magic to us, as Arthur C. Clarke defined an extraterrestrial technology. So we're so far behind the curve that we have much to learn. That's why exopolitics is such an important movement, because it's informing the people of the existence of higher civilizations with a better, more abundant, and happier way of life. So all power to you, Alfred, and all those that are involved in the exopolitics movement. I'm support at 100%.
Well, it looks like we're about at the hour point. I've asked Raymond to stay on for my show too, if he doesn't mind.
Oh yeah, no. This is one platform. This is your segment in a 2-hour platform on life on Venus. Is that? Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
To continue that conversation.
Yeah. Now, but wait, before you start, I have one more question and then at the end of the whole thing, we're going to ask everybody to step forward and give their contact information. So, right now, Raymond, could you quickly just leave with a word for our listeners and where people can go to find your books? Now, after our program last week, and I actually went on, your website was down, And so that's a problem. So maybe there's an alternative place, maybe to go onto Amazon and to search for your books there. But do you have kind of a summary word on this hour, and then we can come back at the end of the whole panel?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
All right. As a summary word, I would just have to say that the Venusian presence is, as Dr. Frank Strange has explained, an angelic force, a force for good here on our planet. And we're not as powerless as we think, or some in the elite sections of society would have us to believe. The Venusians serve as mentors for us, and they work behind the scenes to help advance all of humankind without respect to race, sex, gender, political affiliation, and they don't want us to see them as gods. They're just beings like ourselves, just a little higher up on the evolutionary scale. So, they encourage you to be the best that you can be. If you're doesn't matter whether you're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, whatever, be the best one. Be the best one you can be, and always strive for the light, and that will cast away the darkness. Now, to be in contact or to get information on the Venus books, or read some articles, I would suggest Rob Potter's site, thepromiserevealed.com, or just go to my author page on Amazon.com. Just go to Amazon and type in Keller Venus. That's all you need to do, and it'll take you right there to the books, the 3 books shown above. And I'll be coming out very soon with the book, The Vast Venus Conspiracy, to show what has been going on behind the scenes these past 60 or 70 years to keep us in the dark about life on our sister planet, Venus. I always say NASA and the space agency and the powers that be, when it comes to Venus, are operative with the mushroom principle. They keep us in the dark and feed us a lot of manure. So, my books serve as a step ladder out of that mire, and ascending up into the light where we belong. So that's my concluding word there about that for this hour.
Well, those are very wise words, and they're very elevating. You are Cosmic Ray. I gotta say that, Robert.
Well, thank you so much, Alfred. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, now, Robert, welcome to the second half of our platform. And,
Joe, thank you.
Yeah. So for the next hour, what would you like to lead us into and expand our perspectives with?
I'd like to continue kind of the conversation. Raymond, our friend from upstairs that came to Los Angeles, he told me something, because about you mentioned we're in the financial stuff, and he said love more than you hate and give more than you take is the Venusian wisdom. So this goes into this idea that we have of separation, and the idea of the financial system and the lack that is falsely created through a system that programs us into fear. And I've had a lot of financial problems, and I can't help, and Raymond's trying to beat into me, look, you have to have faith in, that everything's happening for a reason. And I was reading the other Venusian contactee, Luis Fernando Mostojo Martens, who wrote the book, The Dragon Line, that Raymond just translated into English, his first of 6 books. And I was crying a lot during that book. There it is. It's in Spanish now. It's soon to be out in English because Raymond did a great job of translating it. But it does talk about spirituality, Christ, and the interdimensional stuff. So in the Venusian society, as well as in the life of Christ, if you were to become a disciple, and he actually tested one kind of Sanhedrin guy, goes, I want to follow you. And he goes, okay. And he kind of, not openly, but I'm sure that it was, he said, well, if you want to join, you give all your wealth to the group and we all distribute it. And mostly they were giving to other people rather than supporting themselves. They had very, harsh lives, just walking from place to place under persecution and living on the kindness of others and feeding as many pilgrims and seekers as they could. But during I forget who the Sanhedrin guy was, and he said, "Oh, I couldn't do that." And so he basically said, "Yeah, you have given everything in faith for what we're doing, which is not placing our attention on material things. At the same time, the reality for those of us who've ridden the roller coaster of the materialism, there are people homeless. There is suffering and material lack, and I think what it comes down to is recognizing the spiritual maturity, and I can talk about it, but can I exemplify and live that viewpoint? Is that there's a purpose for everything, and that what you want and what you think is not exactly what you're going to get. You have to be in tune with the other dimensional vibration. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, was to understand that this Earth is not just a dense material plane. I just finished Radu Cinemar's book, in the Transylvania Sunrise, Moonrise, Secret Parchment, Egypt, the First Tunnel, inside the second tunnel inside the Earth, and I just finished this morning the book Forgotten Genesis, and it really emphasizes in this Forgotten Genesis book, this gentleman gets to view the Akashic records with the aid of an inner Earth civilization, oddly enough in a safe house on the surface of the Earth. But it really goes into the history of the Earth's genetics. That's a completely different story. But on Venus, which Raymond talked about, you have to walk while our moccasins. It seems from the knowledge that Raymond shares in these books, which you can get on Amazon.com, and really enlighten yourself and really have to have an open mind. You really have to stop this programmed stimulus, emotional reaction, and speaking and intellectual just response. And we all have different triggers. For me, it's a financial. We live humbly, most of us, and as you get older, you're less able to try various jobs. An old dog can learn new tricks, but there's a programmed fear that comes in various instances. And sometimes it's an instance where someone attacks you and you want to defend yourself. So the extraterrestrials and the Venusians would call it's part of what they call the tensor equations, which is a cortic thalamic pause between the emotional brain mind, which is the small, still voice of God within, in the hypothalamus, and then in the cortex, which is your thinking. And if you have a pause and reflect and use your wisdom and use the intuition and your experience, if you can connect to that kind of universal gnosis or grokking, as Robert Heinlein said, you can achieve a more balanced viewpoint. And our minds are going so fast, and mine especially. So the meditation and the reflection and allowing the universe to open us up and to expand our DNA is a very important aspect of what I think is important for us. You have any comments, Kaz?
Oh yes. I would like people to consider that old Boy Scout motto about doing a good turn daily. And there's this old Sunday school poem that I really like a lot, and it's I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I'd rather one would walk with me than merely point the way. And so, as Gandhi said, one act of kindness is worth more than 1,000 prayers. So in the communities out there that are interested in metaphysical phenomena and everything, the first gateway or the first door to go through to open up these possibilities is to start by demonstrating random acts of kindness to those around us. And that's the Venusian philosophy. It's in the Bible that we should always be kind to one another, for know ye not that ye entertain angels unawares. That's in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 2. And that's my favorite scripture, and I think it might have been Dr. Frank Strange's favorite one as well. So we do interact with extraterrestrials, angelic beings that are here on the earth. Paul Hellyer from Canada, the defense minister during the Pearson administration, said there's about 80 species of extraterrestrials that are here on the earth, and only a small fraction are rogue elements, and the majority are here for the benefit and the uplifting of humankind. But we've got to meet them halfway. And so the time to start is now, with real physical, concrete acts of goodness and kindness. And then all these other things like developing the latent powers within us and contacts with extraterrestrials and many marvelous experiences and manifestations are going to come our way, but we have to take the first step.
Yeah, I kind of fake it till you make it.
Right.
You really have to have the sense within. And Raymond's life, I mean, I don't want to keep pounding on the Raymond's a great being, but he's done a lot of service helping people. He doesn't earn much money. He lives in a very humble lifestyle, and this is not about a financial gain or anything for him, but he is constantly helping and thinking of others. But it's not because I have to do a good deed every day. It's because that's in his nature. So because he's realized this group mind and understood, of course, from the gift of his experience, it's something that we all want. A lot of us are getting a lot of people contacting me now that we're talking about this kind of stuff, and they want to know, how can I talk to them? And there's a lot of interest there, and it's for knowledge, and knowledge is very important, and I have a tremendous hunger for it. But I'm realizing now, because my experience is real. Raymond's experience is real. I can't translate that to you in any form of proof, but it's given me a certain level of calmness and peace. I'm still frustrated that the message that the Venusians shared, it's not so much about that message, but it's really just to draw you in to learn more from the other aspects of the teachings that Raymond and I are awareness, which are really spiritual principles in relationship, and really can extend to the world stage. But we still have armies. We still have people signing up for war and death and destruction. And these are the the things that we must change within ourselves. There's no extraterrestrial force, no fleet of spaceships or anything that's going to change our thinking. It's going to be us. Those people who are working in jobs that, if you remember the questions that I asked, I said, what is evil? And she says, she gives the various points of what the evil is. Well, there are evil who tell lies about others. Well, I guess we've all been guilty of that. But when you think about mainstream media, the Gladio-style false flags, and the various agendas of the political, create a conflict, and already have the resolution in order that really is what you want by creating a false conflict or promoting that propaganda, is telling lies to people. Another form of evil, she said, is some people are just evil to the core. That's the whole of them. And some people are working jobs that are harmful to others. That's the military. Okay? Some people do evil by scheming. I won't just say military. I'll say chemtrails, biological weapons, genetically altered foods. People who scheme. Okay, let's talk about bankers. Let's talk about the financial system. Let's talk about, insurance and so many of the other government agencies that are really have endless laws that are really just conflicting us within ourselves and within our relationships to each other. We really need to disconnect. And I'm not saying every person in social services or child protection or the banking system. There's many innocent people who were just going to work in these as automatons. And we need to literally not work so much. If we were to remove the criminals in our government, who, by the way, are heavily influenced, and not all reptilians are bad, but there's been a long-standing, literally million years of hostile reptilian-type intervention, which is due to genetic manipulation of various races, and including other reptilian-type races that have, we judge them because they're doing evil, but to walk a mile in their moccasins, their whole society has been in a situation of horror and terror, and they're expanding this negativity. And it's a great challenge for us. Now, in the Forgotten Genesis book of the Radu Sidamar Transylvania Sunrise about the Brusigi complex, which is a fascinating study, and I recommend everyone who wants to know about the inner earth and other elements of the secret governments and how they manipulate and control things, as well as interdimensional portals, what happened in Atlantis, who built the Great Pyramids and stuff. Tremendous books. Peter Moon did translate them, but these books are really letting us know that it's DNA. So when you think about us, we're really like teenagers. We know everything and we want it now. And we know that's those extraterrestrials, leave us alone, and that's intervention, and don't do this. But the ones that were involved in our genetic kind of creation 400,000 years ago from Sirius, were really positive influences, but it's a long process that we have to come to a maturation, and that's what's taking place now. And there's some tremendous changes, and it never seems fast enough for any of us. But we need to lobby for the people in the military, for those people in politics, for those people who support these people, to slow down, to pause and take a breath and think about a little kumbaya. Let's all hold hands and work together. Let's learn how to rely on each other and to ignore these AI signals, these programs run through systems of governance and creation of false matrix reality and belief systems. And now with an amazingly high technological level of mind control through trauma-based or other, technologies of electronics, elf waves, entrainment through television, subliminal seduction, and incessant media giving us nothing but bad news. And not that things aren't dangerous or bad, but we're going to survive. The Syrians and the Galactic Confederation can always meet any challenge. We have had the Spanish flu. There have been battles between different extraterrestrial races, but in the long scheme term of things, the universe is moving forward as it should and providing an experience for Earth souls to discern free will, to understand when free will is interfered with, and to forgive. God, that's a hard one for me when I think of some of these bad guys. But that's where we're going. I've been yakking. Do you have any comments, Kaz, or any questions?
Oh yeah, Rob. About forgiveness, it's all a matter of it's all mind over matter. I don't mind because it don't matter.
You have any questions on that big long diatribe?
The negative ones don't matter. Just rise above it. That's all.
You have any questions, Alfred?
Well, your insights reminded me a great deal of the insights along parallel lines that I had reached and that I had put up at my website, positivefuture.info. And that is that Earth is now along a positive timeline. We're in what we can call our universe is a time-space hologram composed of timelines, and we shifted around 2012 into a positive timeline, and we're now moving along that a positive timeline. Earth, planet Earth, is kind of a prisoner of its own devices in the sense that it has these, I hate to call them elites, I prefer the term controllers. It has these controllers that are themselves infected with negative energy. This is from a new book called Aeon by Mark Kimmel. Earth is the victim of a great catastrophe in its past. Earth was once up at the 12th dimension and was really a very advanced planet. It was kind of a jewel. And its civilization began experimenting and opening portals, and negative energy infiltrated in. And there was a gradual diminution of Earth down to 10th D, 7th D, and finally the collapse down into 5D with various wars here, and with the solar system wars that destroyed Tiamat into the asteroid belt, destroyed Mars into the pumpkin planet with no atmosphere and no vegetation. Venus has survived it because even though on the 3D level, it's into, the heat, its civilization is up at the 5D. So it survived by going into the 5D at its intelligence level. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to interject some of my opinions and my knowledge and all
Sure.
that. But Venus is in the 4th dimension. That is where we're moving. The Tiamat is a more of a recent history, in the last, 400,000 years. So
Yeah.
we haven't really possibly, the 12th dimension is not even visible to our sight. there are probably 12th dimensional planets within our system. I don't really know. I'm really just trying to figure out the third, and we hear these stories, but we're getting enough gnosis. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions in my next round with the Venusians. I've been pretty hot under the collar with the coronavirus, and we talked about doing a show on that and the negativity. But
by the way, I have to. I'm going to send you a link on the coronavirus. Those people that are falling dead. That's all from 5G. That's all from 60 gigahertz.
Oh.
And that's from 5G directed energy weapons attack. And they have a flu-like coronavirus, which is the thing that's spreading.
You mentioned that.
Killing people is the 60 gigahertz 5G attacks.
Yeah,
So,
I wanted to do that in a separate show. I want to keep this on.
No, right. I understand, but I just wanted to give. Now, look at the Venusians that are up in this. Let's really be kind to each other and compare that to what the Earth controllers are doing, which is depopulation and termination by directed energy weapon. I'm sorry, you asked me a question, and what in the long run, just to answer your question about money and all of that, is that we're on a positive timeline, and the controllers are doing all that they can to confuse Earth humans and to make them believe that we're on a catastrophic timeline. And so the reason why we feel bad, it's all due to the work of the negative controllers and the negative energy from the great catastrophe. That is what's occurring, according to my opinion. Over to you.
Well, I think there's a lot of validity to that, and I wanted to go to the controllers were standing over the Grand Canyon. There's a 20-foot plank, and humanity's standing at this edge of the plank, and there's like one, not even one person to represent, and they're controlling it. All we have to do is step off the plank and ignore them. And this is one of the things I've been trying to appeal to the Venusians, and because I know they follow our conversations, and I've been, if we can just get an attention moment to the reality of them there without, trying to control us or to tell us what to do or to, intervene, maybe we could think, maybe they could say, look, we're here, we're watching you, we're concerned. This is what we see, and we suggest you do something. The solution is up to us. But Raymond, says that is a form of interference, and it could lead to more of us wanting them to do things for us instead of take responsibility. So the other option I've been thinking about is, hey, these guys are criminals. They have names and addresses, and they're actually involved in stuff. So who's ever in charge of the companies for chemtrails, these false flags, these crisis actors, in this making money off of wars, these people need to be arrested. And I don't know where the heroes in the military or the police forces are. I hear about QAnon and all this, but it's pretty sad that the rest of humanity can't just take their eyes off of, the grindstone. And I admit, I'm, you have your worries, but I have enough time to look up and to think about the deeper things in life, like the importance of who we are, where we come from, what is our mission. These are the important things. Raymond, maybe you could add to some of that.
Oh, sure, Rob. Evelyn Smith was the name that Commander Aura Raines went by when she was on Earth in the 1950s. And
You told it. Shh, 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 shh.
in the 1950s.
Okay.
Not the current, not her current identity. So while she was on the Earth, she wrote these science fiction books, and one of them dealt with the extraterrestrials taking over on Earth, and they had established a paradise on the Earth. Everything was perfect, and still, the human beings on Earth that time wanted their independence. So the extraterrestrials granted it to them, and they left the planet, and then the Earthlings went back to their old ways of living, but they were happier again because at least they were in control of themselves. So the object lesson that Miss Smith was trying to make in that book is that even a good dictatorship is still a dictatorship, and so it's up to us humans to get our own house in order. We shouldn't expect the Venusians to do it because they don't want to be our babysitters, and they don't want to impose their will on us. They want us to develop our own autonomous systems. We can model them after extraterrestrial utopian civilizations, but if it's imposed on us, we won't appreciate it here on Earth. And just like in Evelyn Smith's book, we'll end up rebelling and going our own way anyway. And when we look in the Bible, we see that that was so. I mean, we had an Eden, a garden of Eden, where everything was provided and everything was there, but it wasn't good enough for our ancestors. So this is the lesson. I mean, this is the fact of life. So we can't close 25 million years of an evolutionary gap by having the Venusians come down here and run everything for us. We have to grow up into it and learn on our own.
It's like the Pleiadians with Fred Bell during the alignment of the planets in 1982. Everyone goes, oh, earthquakes. And Fred goes, no, it's just going to align. It's going to create more truth. It's going to align the energy centers of consciousness to a certain extent. And the Pleiadians came down above his house. We were up all night. We had done they'd done this. I was leaving my body. I would go through certain breathing exercises and Tibetan protocols and the pyramid systems, and I'd go out of my body. I can't do it that much anymore. I mean, it seems like they were definitely orchestrating it. And I came back, and we were out on this deck, and a spaceship came down. And I remember the image. It went. He was standing there, and I looked, and right behind his head, the ship came down. Boom, boom, boom. I could see it kind of jump, 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 and for just a second, it was there. And it went up, and I was looking at him and he looked at me, and he just told me, by his look, don't say anything, just observe. And it happened 3 times. And it was amazing. For 3 weeks in Laguna Beach in the late 70s, I could see Santa Cruz Island. And back then, Alfred, the smog was so thick, it had more of an orange color. Now with the chemtrails, it's kind of a white, milky, almost foggy look. But back then, the pollution du jour was just leaded gasoline. And Fred goes, yeah, he said, yeah, that's the cleaning it up. And I go, well, why don't they do that? And then he said, think about it. And I thought, well, and this kind of goes to the intervention is that, well, if you have a child that has a filthy room, you know what I mean? You don't clean the room for them, they'll never learn responsibility to do it for themselves. So it seems as though there's this subtle alien intervention, which is not only reptilians, there's other races that are involved in some of this hostile kind of takeover, and they're just less spiritually evolved. They do have genetics that are driving them, and they may have mind control on their own worlds. It's so complex, we can't possibly know. It's just the way it is. And, you know, to kind of take a step back and realize that to really get that wisdom that they can't do it for us, it is a bitter pill to swallow. At the same time, can't we step off that plank together? And when I look at it now with the delivery systems, as she says, one reason they're here is the weapons, artificial intelligence, and delivery systems. They're here to defend their world, to save our world, and to protect the evolution of us, really, and the genetic stock that is coming to a fruition, to a higher consciousness that will achieve a paradisical relationship. We are in the teenage formative years now, stumbling, fumbling, thinking we know everything with supreme arrogance. And there are rational, intelligent human beings that are following along with from these controllers themselves, who are collectively this subtle alien AI trying to herd us towards a certain agenda. The positive races, I'm going to say, want us to make our own determination. And in my friend Louie's book, Raymond can show it again, The Dragon's Line, which I recommend you get as soon as it comes out, it says that in 2016, there was horns recorded on video over Jerusalem. And when Raymond was, or when Louis did his Dragon Line tour at the behest of the Venusians, the Ryans, and the Inner Earth Civilization Confederation alliances, they told him that the seventh seal has been broken. And when I say that, I don't want all you religious reactionaries to claim it's the devil, or the other people to say, oh, it's a cult. You cannot throw out the truth of the spiritual message of Christ and the avatars of wisdom, the ascended masters, the truth of God, and the long-standing lineages of knowledge of our heritage multidimensionally and esoterically, with the bathwater or the filth and the sludge of religions that have sought to control, manipulate, distort, and destroy the messages of the teachers that came. And as Raymond said earlier, it's ecclesia. It's just a group. So, I mean, these are some of the things. Raymond, can you talk about? I asked Raymond, do they have any churches on Venus? He says no. So they don't have any like leaders telling you what to do, going Jesus or
No,
or
what
you're
they believe is
Amen.
that before anything else in our dimension, there was a field of consciousness, and then from that emerged, from that area emerged the first beings, or the aeons, if you want to call it that. There are about 30 of them, and they went to organize. They went to create and manifest matter and to organize the universe. That's what the Venusians believe. So they have a materialist, essentially a materialist philosophy for the creation of the universe, with a slight spiritual undertone. So it's like we are all part of the God consciousness. We're like raindrops in an ocean of consciousness, and how we manifest in this life will eventually recycle us back into that big ocean. So it's not that they're broken down into sects or anything like that, but they do hold meetings and discuss discuss spiritual matters, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, and the realization that we're kind of in this dense physical thing, so we don't really have the perception. Our minds are constantly running in this intellectual thing instead of pausing and just being, which can open up our sensitivity to the mysteries behind creation. We think everything is material. It's just this machine that's running, and if this happens, that's going to happen. It's not that way. And this illusion that we create keeps our mind going, this is that, that's that. We're not allowing the space between our thoughts. So Dr. Frank always said, enter into the silence. That's listening to God. Prayer is talking to God. And I'm not talking about God as a man in a white robe. Everyone knows it's a black woman. I'm kidding. But it's, it's like a hologram. It's like all the drops in the ocean. If you take one drop out of the ocean, as above, so below, within the infinite dimensions of time and space that we can't even imagine, unto infinity, that each drop contains the entire ocean.
Right. Well, the Apostle John put it that in a way that was very easy for everybody to understand concepts of interdimensionality. He said that God is a spirit, and those who worship in spirit and truth. So we're talking about trying to quantify the unseen world in a visible material universe, whereas all intelligence, intelligence is the resulting evolution of results from the emergence of matter from the immaterial world. So it's a natural consequence of nature and evolution.
Because
we're all part of the universe. We're all sparks of the divine.
And because their society is so long lived, and they do have these very high, long-lived spiritual personalities, including an ascended master being the regent, and I'm sure interaction with other higher dimensionals that literally lower their vibration to the Venusian fourth dimension even, and interact with them. So they have a knowledge and awareness of the harmony that they live in. They don't have the AI. They don't have a long history of reptilian intervention. They're very powerful. And I said, well, why don't they, just give us a little bit more information and share? And he says they choose the path of, Raymond said they choose the path of less resistance. And it's kind of like, they have the answer. It's like the teacher is hiding. We're all screaming, what's 2 and 2? What's 2 and 2? And they're like, if we told you 4, you would say it's 6 or 3. So there's that patience of knowing that they are in harmony with the divine plan. And as we listen to the inner voice, as we follow the messages of Muhammad, Krishna, Buddha, Christ, and countless other saints who have led lives of example, not in a personality cult or a worship of that incarnation, but as recognizing them as part of us. And for them, it's much easier, And I remember one of the early contactee groups with George Hunt Williamson and Richard Miller. Some of those guys were like, yeah, it's easy for you guys sitting on your starry thrones up there telling us what's going on. Why we're down here suffering. Oh, yeah. That's George Hunt Williamson's book about the secret base of the Andes in South America. But anything, this bring anything to mind to you, Alfred?
Well, the association that came up for me was to ask a question, and it's this. There's a lot of interaction between the governments of Earth and the government of Mars. and the Martian underground civilization. Is there interaction between the governments of Earth or a government of Earth? I know that it occurred with Valiant Thor, but apart from that, or maybe as an outgrowth of that, is there an interaction? I know that we mentioned that there aren't any Earth bases on Venus in the sense that there are Earth bases on Mars.
I'm going to answer this, and then this is really better suited to Raymond, but from my understanding, and Raymond can confirm this, but there's no official diplomatic relation with the governments. It's too chaotic. It's not unified. It's subtly controlled. And the government figureheads that we see are not the decision makers. It's really a conglomeration of a negative vibration, which is kind of like an unseen power that affects the human consciousness in universal discord and anxiety, bellicose militarists, religious hunters, religious potentiates, oligarchs, or simply subtle extraterrestrials with reprehensible values that do not respect life. So that's why we're very fortunate that they are taking it to, as Raymond has said, thousands of other contactees. Now, Raymond can confirm that. As far as Mars goes, I don't think that the positive Martian government would be in interaction with the negative government bases up there. Maybe Raymond could comment on that.
Okay. Well, in the book that I'm writing now, this is part of it. Yeah, I've already got like over 100.
Come on, show that picture of the
God. This details some of the subtle missions of Venusians working behind the scenes in various governments, including the former Soviet Union and so forth, to affect positive changes on the Earth. But I won't say any more about it now. But Valiant Thor's to the United States, to the Pentagon, wasn't the only one. And you'll find out about other Venusian emissaries at other points, at critical junctures in the Earth's history, where they have intervened and at some points even actually saved the world without taking any obvious credit for it.
Wow, that's pretty explosive statement there.
And that book will be available.
Wow, I guess, well, we have now officially booked you when that book is published. We've officially booked you. Okay.
Oh yes, it'll have photos there from the side of the moon and all kind of fantastic revelations.
That is a pretty explosive state. They saved the world. Well, that's a pretty explosive statement. You are definitely booked here on this program when that volume comes out, and we're going to read those sentences that they saved the world, and we'll get that word out. We'll get the conversation going.
Well, there's actually some clues that are in the final countdown, Rockets to Venus, but I didn't know the true story until I received these documents from a certain Venusian emissary.
Okay, well, you sure got our attention now.
It goes back to the 1950s and 1960s.
Whoa, you sure have our attention. So that was late Truman and Eisenhower.
Yeah, yes, that's right.
There's been a lot of other extraterrestrial interventions, including in Atlantis, that have literally saved the world. It's kind of a cosmic thing, like is God doing something? Well, God is working through his instruments of his manifestation. We are his loving hearts and willing hands, or damning, wayward children, really. So all of creation is changing and shifting, and through everything in the end, new life will come from death. The entire civilizations of the physical plane as we know it can change and create new forms of life and experience for the infinite mind of God and for us to evolve into and to experience. So I get very bent out of shape. Oh my God, I got 20 more. I'm 62. What I got? Maybe 22 years. I hope it's not that long. It's kind of how I'm thinking now with Raymond's, wonderful stories. But you just have to be patient and kind of just accept what's happening and do your best and realize, as I realize now, people are not going to grasp this or I think it's going to be difficult for us to make very super rapid changes in regards to how we're going to move forward in the future. But there is hope, and it's going to get better. It may get worse first, and we're going through a healing and a cleansing crisis. So I would just say stay positive. My website is thepromiserevealed.com, and my conference on the first slider banner there, you can click on it. My Facebook page, my personal page is kind of filled. I'm saving for, I think I got 40 more friends left or something, but for personal friends. But Robert Potter public page, I pretty much post everything there. And, you can meet Raymond, Omnec, Louis, and many other wonderful speakers in Mount Shasta the 26th through the 30th of August in Mount Shasta. We have a beautiful event planned, and I'm making it 5 days so we can take a trip and go to the lake. We can go up in the mountain for a sky watch with Louis, who has just tremendous experiences. And if you read the Dragon's Line book, or if it's out by then in English, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. He's like James Gilloyd on steroids, really. And it's a little even closer. James has very large groups, and you're very far away. Raymond has groups that have had ships land within 40 feet, 50 yards, 100 yards, hovering above, many close encounters depending on the situation. But it's going to be a wonderful conference, and I'm really hoping that we can share more of the inside spiritual information as well.
Well, my friends, I have to get going to pick up my wife at the university. But thank you so much, Alfred and Robert, for sharing this time with me and allowing me to put out this Venus message.
Good. And of course, this was the first of the shows on the first of your Venus books. We'll be in touch with you to schedule the second of the shows on the second of the Venus trilogy. So stay by your platform there, and we'll be asking you to schedule that probably.
Very, very good. Yes, the second final countdown, Rockets to Venus, has firsthand material from people from directly inside the former Soviet Union. It's
good. So we'll be in touch to schedule that.
Very good. Thank you so much.
All right, see you,
God's richest blessings to all.
Okay, and so thank you very much, Robert. Robert, well, I guess Raymond has to go, but do you have any final words that you'd like to share with our viewing audience here?
Well, I've been getting a little more positive. The energy's been pretty intense, I think, for all of us because there's a lot of subtle energy fields. I've been really trying to take a pause in my life from my mental. I get very going on the mental plane, and I feel like, I need people to know this and to save the world. And I'm just realizing that it's okay. The waves are going to keep coming. The tide is going to rise and fall. And don't panic. It's in control. Although when we see the suffering and the difficulties, it's, as I've said a couple times here, it's challenging to have that calm repose and perspective, but it really comes from knowing the nature of your soul and just realizing that you have a long way to go. It's all good. And if we can just keep our eyes on the prize of peace and harmony and, not shout at that person in the car in front of us, or not be rude, try to cut in line in front of someone, or to, realize that the systems you're in, driving in a car and doing gasoline when you could have magnetic cars and this wonderful Tesla abundance technology. And it's really because you're following a false reality matrix. You are hypno-entranced, mind-controlled, emotionally reactive, immediately programmed into various reality belief systems. Take a breath, go into nature, let those negative ideas separate, and together, if we can keep reinforcing good deeds, the media, it's so much negative information. I mean, Kobe Bryant died and 600 million people knew about it, right? Within 2 days, at least, or a billion or more. Can you imagine if that was used to tell the truth? If it was used with responsible leadership instead of those who scheme with agendas, who are manipulated either by their genetics, ignorance, or not just oligarchs of Earth-based, but of false reptilians who seek to disrupt the divine plan. And, I'm a follower of Christ. I'm not, I don't need to like pound it into someone's head or try to jam it down people's throat. But I think the message of forgiveness is a good one, and we all have to grow into that. At the same time, we have criminals that should be arrested. They should be taken down. They need to be removed from their positions. They are violating the Constitution, which, as I mentioned before, was inspired directly from the Venusians. And I'm sure there are probably other ET races of Palladians might have been here then too. But the Venusians in the conversation were very clear that, with me, that they were influencing our leaders. And I'm not sure, the question I might ask them next is, did they know they were Venusians, or did they consider them angels, or just were they incognito as very intelligent thinkers that were persuasive to give the concepts, to explain to us our God-given rights to be free from tyranny and control and manipulation, and to express ourselves in creativity and a positive way. So that's my message, is for people to look within and to ponder these deep questions of genetics and biological weapons. At the same time, what you have the answer. What can we do? So I just want to thank you again for having us on, and we'll be back anytime, and we can talk about the other shows that we discussed in between possibly. But my website, The Promise Revealed, and of course my conference this summer, my Facebook page, and anything else if you'd like to ask or something, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. And I really want to commend Raymond and you as sort of representatives, at least in the exopolitical community, unless you'd like to mention others, that are bringing forth the Venusian presence, the Venusian perspective, the Venusian, I wouldn't say ideology, but I would say philosophy, ethos, and they, at least for us, they seem to be the ethical leaders here and the leaveners here in our solar system, and a good hope for us. And I really for me, it's been like, oh, there's a breath of fresh air. There's a hope immediately in the solar system. We don't have to have all this mishmash and, barely believable stuff. This is quite immediate and quite real. And I would like to commend you from that point of view. And how do you feel about the inroads that you're making into the exopolitical community and into the kind of the body politic and the public discourse vis-a-vis everything that's going on at this time?
Well, thank you for that. As far as other people, I would say Dr. Frank, Omnec Onec, and Luis Mostojo Martens are the other Venusian representatives, and Dr. Frank's not here. Of course, Howard Menger, George Van Tassel, George Adamski, Gabriel Green, a lot of the contactees in the 50s. Now, as Raymond said, there are many others who are affecting change and in conversations, either knowingly or unknowingly, and are of the proper spiritual vibration to benefit from the Venusian wisdom. And that is ongoing, although very secret. As far as the inroads go, I've been getting lately the communication, and my mind gets running a little bit. And they've been telling me, look, just relax. It's going to build. It's a snowball rolling down the hill. Eventually, the truth of this will come out. And it's not really, Raymond and Louis, Dr. Frank and Omnec are much, much better representatives on a certain level of equanimity and calm assurance, because their experiences, of course, far exceed mine. But the more I have, the calmer I become. And yet at the same time, my feeling is, I'm like an Aries. I rush in there like, here it is. What I expected, it's like holding up a piece of meat and having all the eagles come and dive for it, or putting out a little thing of honey and having all the bees come. And, I was kind of, disappointed. And for some people, the comments, I actually prefer if comments are muted on YouTube, but, the negativity is stuff, and I think it's just limiting, but it's disappointing. And, but I think that as time progresses, and they basically said, look, things are changing now. There's going to be some major, what would you call them, signposts or demarcations that are going to come, and people are going to lift their eyes up from the material and realize that it's as you think and as you feel and as you interact with others. This is what's important. It's not if you have gas in your car, if you're making enough money, if you get your kids to do this. It's about the feelings. You have to unite your thoughts and feelings. This is one of the primary teachings, is we can't have our thoughts going like this and our feelings are out of sync. That's a lot of our disease and disharmony, is that out of sync of the emotional and the human consciousness field. So my feeling is positive for the long run. And I've made some good contacts at Contact in the Desert, and I'm expecting some high-powered light-working producers or something to reach out to us at some point. Raymond and I had a description of the distances in the galaxy. That's another thing in regards to the Syrians, the Pleiadians, who's where, and kind of what that political of these different confederation groups and how they interact. And it's really makes, the little things seem unimportant when you look at the vastness of things. So positive future, that's the message.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. And I look forward to our next voyage to Venus with yet another volume and yet another input from your perspective. Are you sure that you're not another ambassador from Venus?
Well, I had this conference called Meet the Ambassadors. I've always been lobbying to be an ambassador. I think I'm a de facto one in that that through Raymond, and I asked him, I forget if I said this, but they originally said, he said, can you meet this guy? And the security chief all and on said, he said, no. And he goes, ask the Queen for me. And the Queen said yes. So it seems as though, it's a challenge, it's a test. How am I reacting? I'm not saying, I'm initiating the new age and I have all the wisdom. It's simply a matter of we all have our parts. So I think I'm a minor ambassador, and I'm really happy of the trust they placed in me. They gave me a very positive message, which I've only shared with a few people for me personally, and I'll share that at the conference. But it'd be seen as a big ego trip. But it really inspired me and renewed my vigor in exopolitics and sharing it. You're a very important part. Michael Sala, we all have our personal differences, but everyone is contributing to an awareness and an expectancy of the whole truth. And as we study more and achieve a vibration that's resonant and responsible, that's how we can meet them. That's how the planet will change. That's when the technology can come, when we can demonstrate harmony and peace amongst each other and compassion.
Excellent.
Thanks, Alfred.
Namaste.
All right.